The Battle Cats series has been around for a number of years, dating all the way back to 2012, following its release on Japanese iOS stores. This free-to-play tower defense game has seen console versions before, with a 3DS version debuting in 2016, and it's actually been on the Nintendo Switch since 2018, albeit only in Japan. This revamped port, the Battle Cats Unite, removes all microtransactions, adds a 2-player mode, and a few minigames to boot, but is it like the cat that got the cream, or more of a bad kitty? Well, thank you to the publishing team for the review code, and now let's find out. So in terms of story then, there are actually a few different story arcs in the game. These will unlock as you make progress, but the one that you start with is called the Empire of Cats, and basically sees the Earth being attacked by the Battle Cats, with no one acting upon this until it was seemingly too late. The reason for this given is that the cats were quite cute. It's a fun enough reason to start battle, and there is a lot of content here that will see you leave Earth and move into space, for example, as you progress through the game, and we'll look at all that in a minute. So on to gameplay then, and as I did mention in the intro, this is a tower defense game. Strangely enough, very similar to a game that released recently on the Switch in Metal Slug Attack Reloaded, albeit the Battle Cats game did release first, chronologically, with you sending your troops out of your base, marching on toward your enemy's base and trying to destroy it, all the while, of course, they are doing the same thing. In this game, you move from right to left, using the units that you have available to you, each of these having their own particular skills or strengths, and costing a certain amount of money. You will make money by just being idle and will need to then purchase units, sending them out onto the battlefield to march forward, taking out any of the enemy's troops and ultimately destroying their base, as I said a moment ago. The strength of the enemies you face and the amount of health points that the base of your enemy will have obviously increases over time, and there are a number of different unit types in terms of what they're weak to or strong against, which is something to bear in mind as you play each stage. For example, some of the enemy types will have a colour, such as red elephants, and you'll have certain unit types that are strong against red enemies, making these ideal to send out at these moments. You'll need to build a balanced team, and to do this you will unlock new units as you go through the game, progressing through levels, but you also have that gachapon machine mechanic where you will earn a number of different forms of currency, such as tickets, both standard and gold, and cans of cat food, and you can use all of this in the gachapon machines to unlock new units in a random style. Now, just to make a quick comparison against Metal Slug Attack Reloaded, I won't do this too often, but it's interesting to compare them to a degree because they've released so close together. In that game, I felt its biggest weakness was that there were times where you would just hit a brick wall, the difficulty would spike exponentially, and the only way really to get past it was to grind for the currency in that game to do the same, unlock these new units and hope one of them would be strong enough to carry you through. I do feel this game is much more balanced in that respect. The unlocks in terms of characters aren't thrown at you as often, you won't earn the currency quite so quickly to use the gachapon machines, and there is a lot more strategy involved in just how you go about the levels rather than just throwing new units at them as you unlock copious amounts with your in-game currency. That is one thing to make very clear. I did mention it in the intro. Any purchases I'm mentioning are done with that in-game currency. All in-app purchases have been removed, thankfully. Although there are a few hangovers of mobile style mechanics left in the game, which is a bit odd, and I will speak about those in a minute. They do bring the game down to a degree, but they don't directly affect the gameplay, I don't think at least. So don't really affect the score too much. Before we look at that though, as well as being able to unlock new units, you can also use the currency you earn for victory in your battles to either upgrade the units themselves, making them stronger, or to upgrade the setup that you have to give yourself a better chance of victory. For example, you could increase the rate at which the money you earn in battle to then buy your units goes up. You could permanently increase the cap of how much money you can earn in battle, therefore buying stronger units. You can do this temporarily in battle too. Or you can upgrade the health points that your base has, for example, just making yourself a bit stronger and a bit more battle ready for what lies ahead. New for this game, there is a co-op edition where you can play through the campaign mode with a friend. The way this works is that you split the units you have into groups of 5 each, and you have your own in-battle money that you can then spend on your 5 units, and this means you can get a lot more units out on the field at once. It does mean having a decent level of synchronicity, and it makes the game, in my opinion, having played a good couple of hours of it the other night, quite a bit easier, but no less enjoyable. In fact, it was a lot of fun in multiplayer. I highly recommend it. There are also mini-games in this particular version. They'll pop up every so often and you'll press Y to take part in one if you want to, and it's always worth doing so because they're quite fun and there are a number of them, and they also earn you some of that in-game currency to speed up the process. I want to talk now about some of the remnants of the mobile game that are left here that are just a bit odd. The first of these is that login reward that you get sometimes on mobile games. Every 6 hours if you log into the game it will give you some of that in-game currency. It's not a major deal, I just don't really see why they leave things like this in a console version of a mobile game when they've removed everything else. But the strangest one is the energy idea. So basically every level that you compete in costs you energy, and your energy will be shown in the bottom right hand corner of the map screen. Now you can conceivably run out of energy, which I'm assuming in the mobile game was kind of that cooldown period where you couldn't play anymore for free, and if you wanted to speed it up you had to spend a bit of money. Here the same thing happens to a degree. You have to spend your tins of cat food currency to carry on, but you'll have so much of it by this point just through the login rewards and other bits and bobs that it won't really matter. You'll easily be able to buy more energy. It just seems a bit pointless. I don't see why they kept it in. They should have just stripped it out completely. In terms of controls, it handles very well. It's very simple in terms of how everything works, and you'll never feel flustered during battle as a result of the controls themselves. You can also use the touchscreen in handheld mode, and again this works very well. Gameplay has that very addictive quality. You'll find yourself wanting to just play a couple of levels, and before you know it you spent a good couple of hours ploughing through. Gameplay gets 17 out of 20. Controls, as I mentioned, nice and simple, they get 18 out of 20. Moving on to the visuals then, and the battle cats themselves are drawn in a very simple way, most of them using a monochrome style. You can upgrade the units and this will change their physical appearance as you move through the game, and I did like this, and there are a number of different units that you'll find as you go through the game, a good few hundred, and they do become a bit more complex. There are a few different headings within the capsule machine areas that you can choose from in terms of where you spend those tickets. I'm assuming these are other franchises, they're certainly not ones that I've heard of, and some of these designs are far more intricate whilst using a similar style, and these look great to be fair. The levels are nice and colourful, which is a nice juxtaposition against the quite basic characters, and each of the bases of your enemy will have a traditional or stereotypical angle to its design. Menus are laid out in a simple fashion, and I do feel there were parts where they could have categorised some of it a little better, such as having the character upgrades and the more passive upgrades separate from each other, just to make it a bit cleaner, but on the whole it does the job well. When it comes to the audio, it's very happy, very bright. Again, quite at odds with obviously the subject matter being battling, but it does work well because of the joyous and playful nature of the character designs. You'll hear a lot of the tunes quite often, but this didn't ever become annoying. They have that kind of jingle quality to them, and the sound effects as you'll fight or take on the enemy's base do exactly what they need to do in the context of this more playful style. Visuals won't be for everyone in terms of the overall style, but I do feel they fit the tone well, and for fans of this series have become quite iconic over time, they get 15 out of 20. Audio, in a very similar vein, does what it needs to do and does it to a decent standard, and it never becomes annoying, which is quite an important quality for these sort of games I feel, and it also scores 15 out of 20. The Battle Cats Unite costs £15.99 and regional equivalents are on your screen now. I've tried to avoid too many comparisons to Metal Slug Attack Reloaded. It is just so odd that the two games released within like a week of each other, and their prices are quite different, so I do think it's fair to do one more comparison. That game retails for £8.99, so obviously quite a bit cheaper. On face value, it would make that one seem the obvious winner if you were to just pick one game up, but I do feel the balancing issues that game has compared to how it's handled here doesn't necessarily warrant the higher price, but it does make it much easier to swallow. With 3 whole story arcs being Empire of Cats, Into the Future and Cats of the Cosmos, as well as special stages and the minigames that I mentioned, plus that 2-player mode, I do think value is actually quite fair, and it certainly keeps you addicted as you play, and on balance, value gets 15 out of 20. To conclude, the Battle Cats Unite is an incredibly fun game. It has a good amount of strategy, and it's definitely one of those games that has the pick up and play nature where you could just play a level or two for 5-10 minutes, but you could easily find yourself still playing a couple of hours later. There's a good amount of content and the multiplayer is a very welcomed inclusion, and fans of the series or anyone that's played it before and had any sort of fun with it will find the same fun here again, just without microtransactions. It's a game that won't be for everyone. It's not perhaps what you would expect. You don't directly control the characters, and it's not really your traditional tower defense game either, but for those that it does click with, it will click very strongly, I'm sure. The Battle Cats Unite gets a SwitchUp score of 80%. Thank you everybody for watching this review. I hope you enjoyed it. Please do remember to leave a like if you did. Don't forget, if you are looking for eShop credit to pick this game up or anything else for that matter, you can use our website switchup.gg to buy your eShop cards, and doing so will get you 5% of your purchase price back in cashback that you can then use against a future purchase. It does help the channel out and it's very much appreciated if you use it. A quick thank you to our patrons and our channel members for your continued support, and to each and every one of you for watching our videos. Take care, and until next time, happy gaming.